Kamari Lassiter, we know he's been running with the ones. He's had his good moments. He's had his bad moments, like a lot of the rookies have. Man, the footage, the little cut of D'Amico mic'd up from practice a couple days ago that popped up with Kamari Lassiter. Maybe he's cheering everybody on like this out of practice. Maybe it's just D'Amico, but this is the one that popped up on social media, so this is the one I shall use. This is D'Amico marveling at the effort of the young rookie cornerback.
Way to finish! Way to finish! Way to finish, 14! Way to finish! That kid freaking compete every snap. Love it. Love it. Every snap. Love it. There you go, Mari. Let's go.
Yeah, that was the Houston Texans Twitter account that put that out.
Yeah.
I think that's the consistent thing that keeps coming up with Caserio and Matt Burke and D'Amico is that they do not shy away from putting praise on this rookie, and the consistency is, I mean, that's what you fear most with a rookie is, all right, is this guy going to get me fired? Is this a guy that's going to go have 5 mental errors in a game and let the ball sail over his head? Not because he can't physically do it, but because he's a boneheaded rookie. And when they gush about a guy's consistency early in camp, it's a really good sign that they trust him to play.
Yeah.
And that he's not, whatever their test they're putting in front of him, I think they trust that he's going to continue. He'll continue to get better throughout camp as long as he keeps working, as long as he stays healthy. So it doesn't mean he's going to be all pro or anything like that. I think you need somebody opposite of Derek Stingley that you can trust.
Well, I think the defense as a whole, yeah, absolutely, on Lassiter for sure. I think the defense as a whole, as long as we're doing winners and losers here, look, the offense, league-wide, the story of this team is the offense. And Stephon Diggs coming in and C.J. Stroud in year 2 and all the pieces they have and the continuity with Slowick coming back and everything else. I've been really encouraged by how often the defense has won out here through the first 6 practices.
Yeah.
It's been very even, and I think the defensive line has been a big catalyst.
That's one of those double-sided swords where, I feel like the defensive line has played very well, but what does that say about the offensive line?
Yeah.
And, how much credit can I give the defensive line for going against an offensive line that doesn't have Laramie Tunsil and has a couple question marks still at left guard and center? Like, what exactly am I seeing here? Am I just seeing a really good defensive line, or am I seeing them just beat up on the hapless Texans offensive line? Right,
or offensive line.
Because I do the praise that I've given to Blake Fisher and Kenyon Green and Juice Scruggs so far is a little bit with a grain of salt. I haven't seen the egregious stuff that I would worry about, but they all have some work to do. But the defensive tackle position specifically, just by virtue of the experience and the different body types, I feel good about them having solid defensive tackles. And you're never going to have all pros at every single position on defense. It's just a matter of, all right, are your guys who aren't your studs, are they credible NFL players?
They do their job?
Right.
Yeah.
And they did. They loaded it up with a whole lot of viable players that are competing like hell out there. And the fun thing about having veteran defensive linemen, because they've got 4 guys who will be over 30 years old or over on the defensive line this year. A lot of the more nuanced stuff, the games that they run, and when you're not blitzing but you're just running stunts with each other on the defensive line, that's the kind of stuff that it gets better with age, because guys get better at the deceptive part of it. They understand better which pass protection they're going to get, because you can call that on your own on the field.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of defensive end and defensive tackle work together, and if they realize that it's going to be slide protection or something, they call the right game for it between themselves.
Yeah.
A lot of times they can just do it with eye contact. So a lot of that stuff that you don't get out of younger players, they have that, and they're working with Will Anderson on all that stuff.
Yeah. As far as the loser side of the ledger so far, I have a hard time finding big ones aside from guys who've just not been able to be out here. A lot of as I'm going through camp the first 6 days and I'm trying to kind of come up with both sides of the winners and losers ledger, like it gets a little boring because I'm like, well, Christian Harris, he hasn't been out here. Joe Mixon's missed 3 practices. John Mechie's missed a couple practices. I guess if you're a guy who's fighting for a roster spot, which Mechie is, then if you're starting to miss practices, you fall onto that side of the equation.
I would say is if we're doing 6 practices in, the thing about Mechie is that he flashed before he got injured. Yeah. So I don't think that it's not like it's a huge setback or anything. No. I think if I look at the receiving core, Robert Woods is the guy that I look at as, man, there's a lot of talented veterans, and there's a couple very promising young guys.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, you know, when Woods lines up out there, and you've also got Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs, he's not getting a lot of targets.
No.
You know,
No.
some of the guys I've kind of been noticing. I've been thinking, all right, who hasn't gotten a lot of targets? And maybe I've just missed it, but I haven't seen Troy Hairston, the fullback, get a whole lot of targets that I can remember. And I think just in the modern NFL, teams love to have a fullback, but he's got to be a fullback who can also be a receiver.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not like he's going to be the primary choice or anything, and maybe it's just a simple matter of that CJ's had too many other options, but that Andrew Beck would be the obvious loser so far because he's supposed to be in competition with Troy Harrison at fullback, but Beck hasn't practiced
Hadn't
yet.
practiced at all. That's a good one. That's a good one. That kind of flies under the radar. Nick has said that every time the receiving group gets brought up post-Diggs trade is that we're going to end up cutting a couple of good players. You know, they're gonna wind up cutting at least one guy, maybe two, that immediately wind up on somebody else's team. Like if Robert Woods gets cut, he'll be in the NFL for week 1. I'm pretty confident about that, you know?
Yeah.
He'll be on a team somewhere. And, you know, and you start to look and you go, okay, well, I think Mechie is going to make the team. I think you're right. I'd like to see him out here, but I think he makes the team. And you've still got Xavier Hutchinson from last year. You've got Skoranek. You've got Steven Sims, who may be the kick returner and is occupying a receiver spot. And Robert Woods, there's a lot of guys. They picked up Quintez Cephas off the waiver wire. You know,
I got
a lot of bodies.
The guys that I'm emotionally pulling for right now are Kendrick Green, the offensive lineman. He's been playing both guard and center. I actually saw him at right guard at one point when he was filling in for somebody. And just because he's undersized, but he's very, very scrappy. Like, he does everything that you hope an undersized guy does. Jawar Jordan, I'm incredibly intrigued by, just because he's shown some real flashes, but he's undersized, and we haven't seen him play tackle football yet.
Yeah.
And haven't seen him go against the ones a lot. So I'm excited to see him in preseason games.
In game for sure. I'm excited to see him again today. He looked really good on Wednesday when we were out here.